There's also a lot of moments where I look around in the day and I go, I can't believe I get to do this.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
like people would love to be able to have this experience, to be this close to whatever species I'm working with. And you just go like, pinch me, you know, like this is really cool.
Hey there, Podcast Aquanauts. It's your host, Casey here. Presumably, if you're listening to this show, whether it's your first time or you're a long-time subscriber, and in either case, thank you for tuning in, I think it's safe to say that many of you have at least visited a zoological institution. And if that's the case, and you're anything like me, you probably thought a zoo or an aquarium would be an interesting place to work. Spoiler, they are. In this latest episode of the show, I've invited a couple of my coworkers and a special guest from the Chattanooga Zoo into the studio dive cage to talk about the different paths that brought us into the zoo and aquarium sphere. Our discussion touches on a lot of aspects of what it's like to work in these special places, both the highs and the lows. We also offer up some tips on how you can make yourself a more appealing candidate for a similar job, whether that's here at the aquarium or at a zoo or aquarium closer to where you happen to be listening from. Anyway, that's enough from me, for the moment at least. Let's get to it, shall we? On with the podcast. Hello, thank you for joining us for another episode of the Podcast Aquatic, the official podcast of the Tennessee Aquarium. Today, we're doing a special collaboration episode with the Chattanooga Zoo. That's another zoological institution here in Chattanooga, as you might guess, based on the name. And we wanted to talk about a topic that comes up an awful lot when you work at a zoo or an aquarium. A question that you are often asked is, how do I get a job working at a zoo or an aquarium? And before we get too deep into the weeds, let's go ahead and work our way around I'd say it's a table. It's like an L-shaped desk, I guess. Today, the podcast has had to move to a new setting for the recording of today's episode. I'll start this time with across from me, Lori Beth Lee. Lori Beth, you are our assistant curator of forests, right?
Correct.
All right, and we'll work through what exactly each of your jobs entail before too long. But next to you is Brenda Salgado. Brenda, you've been on our episode about rays, right? Everything about rays.
Yes, the stingray episode.
All right, and you are an aquarist too.
Yes, as of October.
And joining us here in the studio dive cage is Amanda Eckhart. Mm-hmm. Is that right? Correct?
Yes, that's it.
All right. And Amanda, you are the representative from the Chattanooga Zoo today. So why don't you tell us what your job is?
Yeah, so I am one of our animal care supervisors at the Chattanooga Zoo. I oversee our behavioral husbandry program and our animal welfare programs. So that includes overseeing training programs, enrichment programs, and all of our well-being things.
Awesome. All right. And normally I forget to introduce myself, but since today I'm not just the idiot host, but also an aquarium employee, I guess I also can contribute to the conversation. I am Casey Phillips, the host of the podcast and our senior communications specialist here at the aquarium. So let's start with a little bit of background. So Lori Beth, how long have you worked at the aquarium? How many years?
I have been here since 1999, so we're going on 26 years.
26 years.
Yep. I started when I was 14, so this has been a big part of my life.
So you were assistant curator for us when you were 14, obviously?
Obviously. No. I have been in that role for 2 years now. So I've worked in almost every department that we have, from visitor services to education to husbandry, and kind of worked my way up. So
awesome. All right. So 26 years. Brenda, you have a high bar to try and beat. So 27 years for you then?
Oh, yes. No, something along the lines of going on 3 years this summer.
Okay. Yeah. And you started off with, well, we'll get into this a little bit later, but you were a fellow before that. Are you counting that in your time?
Yes. I started in the summer of 2022.
Okay.
And that was like a few months, and then started as an aquarist in August of 2022.
Awesome. And then Amanda, how long have you been at the zoo?
I'm in my 8th year at the Chattanooga Zoo. I started as a keeper as well and kind of worked my way up. So I was started as what we call a swing keeper, which means you move around to a variety of different areas. So I'm also pretty well versed in a lot of the different areas at the zoo, similar to Lori Beth. Worked kind of all over the place, and ended up kind of working my way up and found my niche in the training and enrichment area.
Awesome. So Lori Beth, I'm not sure at what point the episode is going to come out in which you made your debut. So we were talking about species survival plans in that episode.
Exactly.
And In that episode, I asked you what exactly an assistant curator forest does, but I think that's actually a more germane question to ask in the course of this conversation. So what exactly does your job entail?
So I am an assistant to our curator forest, Kevin Calhoun, but it includes my normal coverage areas. So I'm over our penguins and our birds, but it also involves overseeing anything that's not a fish. So our otters, our lemurs, our turtles, all of those guys that do the daily husbandry can come to me with any sort of question or issue. And I'm also in charge of scheduling and attending meetings for like animal welfare and things like that.
Yeah, it's very hard for me not to think of you in terms of penguins because since I've been here, you are like the penguin person.
Exactly. It's still the special little part in my heart, but it's been a fun challenge the last few years, kind of learning more areas and getting out of my comfort zone, what I know so well, and learning things that I'm not as familiar with.
Awesome. And then Brenda, aquarist is maybe a title that people outside of the aquarium and zoo industry are not familiar with. So what does your job entail exactly?
So, opposite of what Lori Beth does, she takes care of the little guys that aren't in the water. I take care of the fish, and also take care of the cow-nosed stingrays, as you might have heard the previous podcast. And my job is mostly saltwater. I have island live tanks, 3 of the island live tanks there, and also the Barron's top minnows.
Okay, so is the saltwater focus something that you chose or that you gravitated towards, or was it just kind of what you were assigned?
It kind of just fell because I came into the time where the previous guy who was taking care of them was Adam Johnson, and also he got a promotion where he took care of the animal care facility, and I got into his footsteps of taking care of the stuff that he left behind in the building.
Okay, and then Amanda, what can you kind of give us an overview of the kinds of responsibilities you have?
Sure. So a lot of what I do is overseeing our training and enrichment programs. So as keepers are working on a training plan or they want to do a new training plan, I kind of work with them on that, help them with their shaping plans and do all of those sorts of things, approvals for all of that, new enrichment items, things like that. I also run our training and enrichment workshops for all of our interns who come in. They get to learn about enrichment and do an enrichment project. They also get to learn about ethograms and how to do behavioral observations. So,
what is an ethogram?
So an ethogram is a list of behaviors, basically. And what we do is we use that when we're doing behavioral observations on an animal. So for a lot of different reasons, we may just want something called an activity budget, which is just how does an animal spend their day? And so you would use a list of behaviors that you've set ahead of time. And then as you observe, you mark down when you observe each of those behaviors and kind of keep track of that data. And then you can use that data to see like how your animal spends their time, for example.
Awesome.
We use them for monitoring stress things. We can use them for monitoring how they're interacting with enrichment items, different things like that. So there's a lot of different uses for them. So that's one of the things that I teach our interns as they come in, learning how to do that. Oversee all of that, as well as our welfare program. So we do routine welfare assessments on all of our animals to make sure that they have good well-being. And so I kind of oversee that as well and have meetings with keepers when issues arise, whether that's behavioral or medical, different things like that. So I kind of work close with our vet team as well.
Okay. So, and I don't know if I should talk about what I do here or not, but obviously one of the things I do is I run the podcast, and I also do a lot of our video production. I write a lot of our press releases and edit press releases written by other members of our team. So kind of a lot of different fingers and a lot of different pies, just like a lot of people at the aquarium. I feel like, and I'm sure the same is probably the same at the zoo, you tend to wear a lot of hats, and when you work at a zoological institution, you, at least in my experience at least. So the reason we're doing this episode is, one, because we wanted to collaborate with the zoo. Obviously, you guys are our neighbors and also involved in animal care here in Chattanooga. But more than that, we have been inundated, or I have been inundated, I guess, in the last 8 years I've been working here with questions that I've seen on social channels and just in talking with people day to day about how do I get a job at a zoo or an aquarium? It's just a question that people naturally seem to be to gravitate towards roles where they think they get to work with animals day to day. So why do you all think that is? Why is that a question that, and I know from talking to you that that's a question that you get at the zoo as well. So why do you think it is that people want to work at a zoo or an aquarium? What's the appeal?
I think people like animals. And it's the idea of this job that you get to do something that you enjoy. You know, so often people think about having to go to work, but I always look at it as like getting to go to work. These are living creatures that are very interesting to interact with, and they're going to depend on you. So I think it's a fun, interactive job.
My grandfather used to say that if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. So that's fair. Anything else? Any other reasons why you think people might feel drawn to working at a zoo or an aquarium? Either of you, Brenda or Amanda?
On the flip side of that, this is going to sound a little silly, but I find a lot of people who work in animal care do it because they don't like people as much. Yeah. So we tend to have a lot of introverts and people who maybe don't want to work in like very social types of careers. I think that sort of is an attracting thing too.
And also, I feel like talking to people who have been here working so long, I think growing up and going to these places and saying, oh, that's such a cool job. It's just a neat job to talk about, you know?
Yeah, there is something about having that kind of core memory of visiting a zoo or aquarium for the first time. This was not the first zoo or aquarium I visited. Growing up in Knoxville, I'm sure the first time I went to a zoo or aquarium was probably Zoo Knoxville. But I do distinctly remember the first trip that I took to the aquarium when the aquarium opened in 1992 and riding the escalator up in our River Journey building and being told that I was becoming a water droplet. And I was about to become rain falling down into the Cove Forest, in the Appalachian Cove Forest where our river otters live. And that memory has stuck with me my entire life. And so when the opportunity presented itself to me about 22, 23 years later to come and work here, I leapt at the opportunity, largely because I did have that long-standing attachment and fondness for the aquarium. So you're probably right there, Brenda. So how did each of you get your jobs? Like, what was your inroad? Because people who are asking this question obviously would like to follow in our footprints, so to speak. So Lori Beth, we'll start with you. How did you've been here the longest. What was your entrance to the aquarium like? How did you start working here?
Yeah, I guess I went to a summer camp. I attended a summer camp that I don't think lasted more than a year or two. It was a computer summer camp, and it was when in our River Journey building there was a giant computer lab, and so that was my first exposure to the aquarium when my family had moved here, and I attended that, and I found out when you turned 14 you could become a volunteer for summer camp, and I could not imagine sitting around the house all summer, so I needed to do something and be active. So I started with summer camp and came back every year. Right after I graduated high school, I actually got hired to teach summer camp. And so I was one of the first younger staff that they brought on only for the summer to teach summer camp. And that just kind of evolved. And through college, I came back and would work summer camps every year. And then when I found out that we were getting penguins, my good friend Amy Graves was the original penguin keeper. And I told her, I just want to start. I want to clean. I want to help in penguins. I want to be a volunteer. I just want to get my foot in the door somehow. So I started cleaning penguins with her, and I started cleaning bird cages with Kevin. And
there's a lot of cleaning to do with penguins.
There's a lot of cleaning. It's a daily thing. But by the end of summer 2007, I was offered a position to work with our penguins. And so I've been there basically since the beginning with them. And then that just kind of evolved when the opportunity came up to have an assistant curator. I put my name in the hat and was fortunate enough to get that job. So a lot of cleaning, working my way up, a lot of volunteer hours, but definitely worth it.
And we're lucky to have you.
Well, thank you.
And lucky to have you, Brenda. So how did you start working at the aquarium?
Well, I got the first and only internship that I ever applied for here at the Tennessee Aquarium in the summer of 2022. And my idea of I had no right path that I wanted to take right after college. So I thought I was just going to get experience and hop on to the next internship. But that's not how it turned out. I just stayed here.
Where were you in school at the time?
I was at Dawn State.
Okay, so down in North Georgia.
Yes, at Dawn, Georgia.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
So if memory serves, you were doing the fellowship. The fellowship ended and you just kept right on working, right? There was
right.
It was like a weird transition where it's is she on staff or is she not on staff? Is is the fellowship extended? What's going on?
So Matt Hamilton, I guess the curator.
Curator of fishes, yeah.
Yes, the curator, and also my boss.
And also a previous guest of the podcast on our invasive species episode.
He didn't want me to leave, so he kept extending my internship and having me on as kind of like a fellow still, but not technically a fellow, just giving me more hours and hours until he was finally able to hire me. I had to go through the interviews and stuff, but
yeah. So there was an official process you had to go through.
Still an official process, yeah.
Okay. All right. And how did you become aware of the aquarium? So you didn't grow up in North Georgia, right? So I don't think you did you?
I'm from LJ, Georgia, which is like an hour from Dalton, yeah.
Okay. So did you like grow up knowing about the aquarium? Was it like part of your childhood?
Well, I had only visited the aquarium, I think like twice in my life before then, but it was never, oh yes, I will work here, the kind of thing. It wasn't like my end goal. I learned about the internship through my professors. They were, hey, this is a good opportunity, you should apply. Yeah. And I did it.
Yeah, that's a really, so that's the were you a Jim Hill fellow?
Yes.
Okay, so the Jim Hill Fellowship is one that's offered every summer, and there are a lot of different areas that you can kind of specialize. You can apply for a
conservation part,
there's a conservation, a husbandry,
and operations,
and education too, I think.
Yeah, and there's an Aquarius side of the husbandry and a forestry side.
That's right. Yeah, so really with that particular, and we'll get a little more into fellowships and kind of ways you can get into the aquarium and zoo later, but yeah, that's a really great fellowship program because it does let you kind of pursue whatever specific aspect of our operation appeals to you most directly.
And also, if you apply for one, the next year you can apply for a different one. And people have also came back.
Amanda, how did you start working at the zoo? I understand from looking a little bit at your LinkedIn and the bio that you sent to me by email that you had a little bit of a background in hoofstock work.
Yeah, so my entry to zookeeping was a little bit non-traditional. I actually never completed an internship, which is crazy. But when I was in college, I worked with domestic horses. And so that's kind of where I got my start in animal care, learned a lot about training through that program. And then an opening came up at my local zoo where I was, and it happened to be in hoofstock. So a lot of my horse experience was very translatable to that, and I just got lucky and they took a chance on me, really, is kind of how that ended up. So I started there in hoofstock. So my original background was working with giraffe, rhino, elk, bison.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of species that we don't currently have here at Chattanooga. So when I came to Chattanooga, I was moving closer to home, basically.
Well, we don't have any hoofstock at the aquarium, so all of it sounds interesting to me.
Yeah.
And I guess I'll go ahead and offer my own 2 cents on this. I come from a journalism background. I worked at the local newspaper here in Chattanooga, the Chattanooga Times Free Press, for about 10 years. And every opportunity I had to write about the aquarium, I seized it. I made up excuses to write about the aquarium. In fact, I just mentioned species survival plans earlier. I wrote a story about them for the newspaper. In fact, I think I interviewed Lori Beth. I don't know if you remember this.
I don't know if I remember that.
We definitely talked because we talked about penguins. And I think it was around the time that our penguins got sent to another facility to SeaWorld.
Okay.
And then when I had an opportunity, I reached out to our vice president of communications and marketing, with whom I had worked many times setting up those stories, and just said, I'd be interested in leaving. If an opportunity ever arose for there to be a position for me, I would love to be considered for that position. And then I was emailed back a couple weeks later, and he said that actually they were creating a position that would be perfect for me. And here I am doing hosting duties here at the Podcast Aquatic. Now, I should point out, though, that as is evidenced by the fact that I am doing my job, that the people who are saying that they want to work at a zoo or aquarium, oftentimes I think we assume that they mean, and they probably do mean, that they want to work with animals. But to work at a zoo or an aquarium, you don't necessarily have to work with animals. In fact, there are a lot of positions at the zoo or aquarium that have little to nothing to do with animal care, as evidenced by my role. But we also have, we have painters, we have electricians, we have plumbers, obviously. We've got people who do special events at the aquarium. We have educators. There are a lot of different roles. I like to say that a zoo or an aquarium, an aquarium mostly in our context, is like a city. And I'm sure the same is probably true, Amanda, at the zoo. Like there are a lot of different roles that are required to keep the lights on and keep the turnstiles turning. So You don't have to think about it in terms of only working with animal care, or you might exclude yourself unnecessarily. You can work at a zoo or an aquarium without having a background in an animal care related field. You can be, I have a journalism background, and here I am. I have a degree in German, and that has little to nothing to do with my job. But
And I actually have a degree in theater. So
there you go.
I did not study anything about animals in college, but I knew that this was a place I wanted to be. So.
Well, and you had, I think once you become a known entity, that's a great way of getting your foot in the door.
Mm-hmm. It is. And you really find out that, especially with a small place like the Tennessee Aquarium, that people, they're really a family. Like they're the family you get to choose. You choose to come here and volunteer your time. And then you just get really attached to the place and the mission, and you just feel kind of proud to be part of it. So.
The Tennessee Aquarium's podcast Aquatic is made possible by support from the Tennessee Conservationist, the official magazine of Tennessee State Parks. Each issue is filled with fascinating stories about Tennessee's native species, rich history, and unique culture. It's also your guide to exploring state parks and planning your next outdoor adventure. Subscribe today at tnconservationist.org. This is probably true of a lot of nonprofits, but I think people tend to enter the nonprofit sphere and take the commensurate pay cut because they feel like there's a lot of belief in the mission behind that decision. So is that true for you, Amanda? For you, Brenda? Do you feel like you're here partly because you're invested in the mission? Do you believe in what we stand for?
Oh, absolutely. I think we kind of touched on this a little bit when we were talking about like childhood experiences, because I think that's a lot of what we do is really wanting to create those experiences for people and build that connection between them and the animals that we care for, and then also their counterparts in the wild. And making that connection is what zoos and aquariums are all about. So yeah, I think that just having that passion is a huge part of it.
Yeah. And Brenda, you and I were out a couple weeks ago in the middle of a field in the middle of Middle Tennessee, releasing endangered fish into streams where they belonged.
Yeah, definitely. It's what matters most.
Yeah.
I don't think I would have stayed if I didn't believe in this place.
Yeah, there are a lot of people. I was actually talking to our head of HR leading up to this episode, asking for, did she have any tips for how you could get a job here? And we were talking about the fact that the passion for the mission really is why we have a lot of people who've worked here for 20 plus years, or in some cases 30 plus years. I mean, that is a motivating factor for a lot of people for the longevity of their tenure here.
Because you don't get into animal care for money. Everybody knows.
Not.
There are plenty of things that you could find and you could study and you could do that would bring in a lot more, but you want to be happy. And so for us, it's, for me at least, it's worth it. So
yeah, my litmus test is, can I go to sleep at night feeling as if what I have done during my day has contributed good to the world? And I think I can't think of a day that I've worked here that I can't go to bed thinking that.
There's also a lot of moments where I look around in the day and I go, I can't believe I get to do this. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like people would love to be able to have this experience, to be this close to whatever species I'm working with. And you just go like, pinch me, like this is really cool.
I'm blowing bubbles for penguins today. Exactly. Like who else is doing that, So yeah.
Brenda, you're dive certified. So you've gotten to get into the exhibits and swim alongside sharks.
Species I would have never thought I'd be so close to.
Yeah. There are a lot of exceptionally bizarre things associated with our particular jobs and working in this field, things that like you just said, things you can't imagine, sentences that anybody else could say in another job, just talking about what they did during their 9 to 5. But, like stuffing dog toys with lettuce for lemurs to eat and be enriched by, or you mentioned bubbles with the penguins, or making snow for otters. I mean, I've spent many mornings doing that.
We took a trip to the quarry years ago and handpicked rocks for our breeding season for penguins. We sat in a pile of rocks for 3 hours in the rain, deciding which rock was worthy and which one wasn't. And so, I mean, you never know what you're going to get to do. And that's kind of exciting. You know what has to be done every day. You know your routine. You know what's going to happen. But you also get these little surprises thrown in, sometimes good, sometimes not so easy to deal with. But I think that's what keeps us on our toes and keeps us good keepers, is we're able to adapt and we're able to do that.
Sure. And any job has a learning curve. So what were some things that took some getting used to when you started working just in the zoo and aquarium sphere? And Amanda, we'll start with you.
Oh, that's a good question. So I think for me, it was just getting used to the level of responsibility on your own. At the zoo that I started at, we worked a lot very independently. So I would have animals that were my sole responsibility for the day. So everything that impacts their life is coming from me. And I have a quote that still sits on my desk that says, "Our quality of work is their quality of life." It's one of my favorites.
Me too.
Is that not in the penguin backup?
It is, yeah.
I'm feeling a kindred spirit here
Yes,
with
exactly.
Lori Beth here. Yeah, and so just there is a level of responsibility there that comes that I don't think you think about when you think about just how the fun and the lightness of it, but also these are lives that are in your hands, and their food comes from you, their enrichment comes from you, all of their needs, you're the person who's taking care of those things. And so it can be a little intimidating, but
Sounds stressful.
it can be. Yeah. It's not always sunshine and roses in this kind of a career, but I think the positives outweigh the negatives, and you kind of learn how to work as a team and how to lean on your team members and get everything done. But that was something that I think I wasn't quite expecting, maybe.
Yeah. Brenda?
I definitely feel that as well. You feel the responsibility on your shoulders. But I feel like when you do have bad days and you go back to work and you see the animals thriving, that's when it's worth it.
Absolutely,
That's when you
yeah.
can feel like you did something good.
Yeah. Lori Beth?
Kind of along the same lines. And I feel like as you get more comfortable with it, you are able to collaborate more, I guess. Our other penguin keeper started as a volunteer with me and then worked as an intern. And now, like, something that Kevin says, and I'll say, about our other keeper, Holly, is I can take my days off and feel confident that everything is completely under control. And there was years where I would just be nervous when I wasn't here. But I've learned that, teaching people, then passing off their responsibility lets them grow. And it's a very comforting thing. Kevin will say a lot, like, when I'm not here, I don't have to worry about penguins. I don't have to worry about otters. You guys have it. You know what you're doing. And it's a really comforting thing that comes with experience, is being able to say, maybe this person doesn't do things exactly how I do it, but they do it correctly. Like, they do it and the animals are thriving and they're doing good. And so I think, realizing, I guess, with experience that you have a team that has your back is a really comforting thing.
Yeah. So, and I guess in your case, and maybe also in your case, Amanda, as you've had more and more experience, and you've been here for as many years as you have, or at the zoo for as many years as you have been there, Amanda, that you have had to sort of shift away. Well, maybe not in your. I don't know. Have you shifted away from purely animal care to having a little bit more managerial duties? Because I know that that's kind of the case for you too, Lori Beth.
Yes.
And has that been a hard transition for someone who got into this to care for animals to then have to kind of manage people as well?
In some ways, yes. In some ways, no. I think you kind of touched on this a minute ago, but there is something that is really also empowering about teaching and building, like, the next generation of caregivers. So I do take a lot of pride in the keepers that I have raised, so to speak, you know what I mean, from their internship and seeing them grow. And so it is a different transition. I don't work as direct contact with the animals daily now, but the things that I do are still very important to their lives, in the same way that anyone who works at the zoo, their job, whether they're marketing or maintenance or anything, they still impact the animals' lives, even if it's not directly like, I fed you today.
Yeah. I call it animal adjacent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Has that been hard for you, Lori Beth, to shift? You said 2 years now as assistant curator for us. So was that a difficult transition to make from senior aviculturist to what you're doing now?
Responsibility wise, not so much, but it did make me take a step back and just realize that, like, I was now in this leadership role, whereas I might have been on a peer level with everyone before. And so that was a little new for me, just kind of figuring out how to navigate that. Everyone in our department has been supportive. So it's it's helped. But I definitely feel way more confident in the last 18 months than those first 6 months of adjustment.
Sure.
So it is different. And, just being more collaborative, going to everyone. I'm not their manager, but I want their input. So it's a learning curve, and I kind of feel like I'm definitely more confident than I was a year ago. But I'm still incredibly grateful that I get to do the animal caretaking stuff. I don't think I would be able to go completely one way or the other. I would miss the daily care of our penguins and stuff. So it's been a learning curve, but a good one, I think.
Yeah, I can't imagine the day when you've like picked up your last bucket of fish like that. I just feel like that's always going to be part of it for you.
It's a physical job. I mean, you guys know, like, it is not a sit at your desk and I'm just going to go feed. It is scrubbing and getting on your hands and knees and lifting. Zookeeping is a physical job.
Yeah, like even our lemurs, which people look at lemurs and they think, oh, they're only about the size of a cat. Like they can't. How much trouble can they possibly cause?
Yeah.
And then you go out and exhibit with them for in the mornings, and you see like the literal buckets of poop that they have to pick up and
they're climbing. The keepers are climbing in the trees to hang enrichment, and there's hierarchy issues with the lemurs that change on a daily basis. So animals keep you on your toes. They keep you excited, I guess, for the challenge.
Well, let's talk about the best parts of your job. So people think of this as like a dream job. So what about your job is so dreamy? What do you love the most about your role?
Oh my goodness.
Brenda has to go. I'm going to make Brenda, you get to go first this time.
I personally do love that how hands-on it is. You do stay on your toes. And I actually like the changing environment. Every week, I'm part-time at an animal care facility, so I help out Adam, do a lot of the procedures we have out there. And stuff can just pop up out of nowhere. Somebody needs an injection or we have to make a move. I like that.
Like relocate something.
Yeah.
Not like make a move. Like...
Oh yeah, no. Yeah, relocating an animal from the building to the care facility. Also, the best part of my job is probably like taking part in feeding everybody. That's my favorite thing.
Why? Why feeding?
I feel like everybody looks happy. Everybody loves to come up and take the little nibbles from their food. I take care of the anemones in our Vancouver exhibit, and I love getting in and target feeding them. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a fun video that as I am wont to do, I forced you to wear a GoPro on your head while working in that exhibit, and I think you were target feeding anemones that morning.
Yes, correct.
So if you have, I'll include that in the show notes so you can get an idea of a fish person point of view of what it's like to be Brenda on an average morning. Amanda, what's your favorite part of your job?
I'm sitting here kind of thinking about how do I narrow it down to one favorite thing.
You can choose. You can choose a couple. That's all right.
But like I mentioned, I oversee our training and enrichment programs, and those are two things that I'm really passionate about. So I really do enjoy being able to help the keepers make their animals' lives better. So we do a lot of training that is based around their veterinary care and things like that. And so helping the animals to be confident and learn to be voluntary participants in their healthcare so that it's not scary is a really important thing to me, like making their lives better by doing that. And then, of course, enrichment is always, that's always fun. Just doing things that can help them bring out all those natural behaviors and do the things that they want to do.
We've mentioned bubbles in the penguin exhibit. So what's your favorite enrichment activity that you've been involved in, either creating or just giving to the animals?
Oh, that's a good question. I love a good puzzle feeder.
Describe what a puzzle feeder is for someone who's not in this industry.
So, and a puzzle feeder can be used for any species, really, just kind of tailored to them. But basically, you're going to have some kind of apparatus. We use a lot of PVC tubes and different things like that, that you're going to put either their diet in to make it a little bit more challenging for them to get it out, or sometimes you use treats and fun things to encourage them to get it out. We have a lot of animals who, in their natural history, they would spend a lot of their time foraging for their diet. So it's a way to, instead of just, here's a pile of breakfast, I'm going to actually like make you go out and forage forage for it the way that you would out in the wild. And so it's bringing out those natural behaviors, but also really it's fun for us too.
Lori Beth, what's your favorite part of your job?
I would say when breeding season is successful in penguins, because it's a huge part of the year. Breeding season starts at the beginning of April and it doesn't end until the last chick leaves the nest, which has been October before. So we're not talking a couple months, we're talking 6 months. And when we have a chick hatch, it's a very nerve-wracking experience. This is a 100-gram baby sitting underneath a 20-pound penguin on a pile of rocks. And so when that chick actually leaves the nest successfully and takes its first swim and learns how to eat on its own, that's my favorite part, is to see that they have successfully raised their chick with our help, and the chick is independent. And it's really fun to watch how they fit into the colony, and kind of finding their places where they can hang out in the exhibit and not be in anyone else's little territory. With the case of our chick from last year, she is a handful and she just bosses everybody around. So just seeing that success, because it's hard to measure if an animal is happy, but if they are doing what they would be doing in their natural habitat successfully, like breeding and raising those chicks and having a good appetite and interacting with their environment, then we like to think that they're as happy as we can gauge.
Sure.
So.
That happiness being a good segue to the next question. What are the things about your job that people might be surprised to hear are like a daily responsibility for you? Things that are maybe tedious or boring or gross, things that if we want to make people consider the good and the bad, what are the bad parts or the less pleasant parts of your job that people should be aware of if they want to work at a zoo or aquarium?
It's a lot of poop. You clean
There's
up a lot of poop.
Yeah.
So sometimes you end up with it on yourself. You don't even know it. You don't leave smelling pleasant. You have to shower before you go see anybody in any social setting afterwards.
Yeah, show of hands. Who's been pooped on in the course of working at a zoo or an aquarium?
Yeah, my
Brenda didn't raise her hand. Brenda, you haven't been pooped on at work?
Oh my god.
Oh, we'll fix it. Oh my God.
You swim in the secret reef. You've been pooped on.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
One of our previous curators had baby penguin poop straight in the mouth. So I've seen it all. I've seen it all happen. But personally, for me, it's a necessary part of the job. But cleaning the windows from the inside of the exhibit is so hard because they're 5 or 6 feet away, and just getting those fish scales off is a hard, tedious project for myself. So that's on my list of things that are not my favorite to do.
I've also got a fish person point of view video of I think it was Holly actually cleaning the exhibit. So I'll put both of those in the show links so you can, or those show descriptions, so you can look and see what it's like to be a penguin keeper as well. All right, Brenda, what's the part of your job that is people would be surprised to hear about that they might find boring or not appealing?
Well, I find everything exciting, even the gross parts. But honestly, I just hate email work, like answering to emails and just doing office work.
Like request to join a podcast. Having to do that.
No. Along the lines of things that I don't like to do, part of my job.
The fact that you're having to think about it is hard.
I don't think I have anything that I can think of right now.
It's good to like your job that much.
Poop wise, we have Oscar that we have to vacuum their tank.
Oscar is our green sea turtle, or
yes.
Oscar the fish?
No, Oscar the green sea turtle.
Oscar the green sea turtle.
His
So
poops
Oscar-
are big.
People have asked about Oscar, and at some point we'll probably do a podcast about him. But he's a permanent resident out at the animal care facility, and he is a big boy green sea turtle, and he's a rescue too. So anyway, we'll get into that in a future episode. Amanda, what is the part of your job that you would find people would be surprised to find is a daily responsibility for you, something that's boring or tedious or gross?
Yeah, so now that I've moved into a more supervisory role, I do a lot more desk work. One of those things involves just ordering supplies, which can just be tedious, but it is important because you need cleaning supplies and things like that to make the world go round. So all of those things, when a squeegee breaks or a scrub brush breaks, now I'm the person who makes sure that we have all of those things in stock and supplies for everyone. So it's still important, but not that much fun, really.
Well, I mean, there's a reason they call it work, right? What is the hardest part of your job? The most difficult? It doesn't have to be tedious. It could just be challenging.
I guess going opposite what I said was my favorite part is when an animal is sick or when you have to, say goodbye to an animal, because these are not our pets. But you can't work with something for as long as we have and not form some sort of attachment. And I keep reminding myself, and what we often try to, remind the public of is these animals that are in our care are living well beyond their expected life. And so for some of our penguins, 15 to 20 years is normal in Antarctica. We have birds in their 30s. And so we're looking at animals that are twice as old as what they would normally be. And so you're dealing with just normal things that people and dogs and our cats deal with, mobility issues. You're dealing with eyesight issues. You're
Arthritis.
And so we are monitoring all of the animals, but sometimes despite the top-notch veterinary care, there's nothing we can do, and things happen, and it's hard. That's a hard thing to lose an animal that you've invested so much time and care into. And we know that we've done the best that we possibly can, so it makes it a little bit easier, but it is really the toughest part for me, I think.
Yeah. Brenda, you knew I was coming.
I know. So I think the hardest part that I've experienced is retraining, like my cow nose rays and sting and spotted eagle rays. It was great. They were training pretty well, but then when they suddenly just a few get left behind, it's hard to retarget those and bring them back to their normal schedule.
No ray left behind.
Yeah, right. It's hard when you have like 15 at the time.
Okay. Amanda?
Yeah, I agree with Lori Beth for sure. That's definitely one of the biggest challenges is the animal loss. But moving more into a supervisory role, I would say also managing people is a very different challenge. A lot of zoos and aquariums, we kind of home grow our leadership. And so making sure that I am learning how to manage people is very different than learning how to care for animals. And that has been an interesting challenge. Just kind of making sure that our teams are getting along and they're functioning well, and facilitating communication and trying to keep that open line of communication between management and keeper staff and things like that. So I'm always learning, always trying to get better at that. But that is, that's more of a challenging thing, I think, especially as you're moving up from I was just a keeper and now I am a supervisor to you who I used to be your peer, and, trying to make that balance. And, you want to just help people to enjoy their jobs as much as you can.
All right. Well, so I think we're closing in on the end of the podcast, but let's end with some suggestions for people who are listening who presumably are interested in pursuing a career at a zoo or an aquarium. What tips would you offer, since we've all successfully made the transition from not working at a zoo or aquarium to actually working at a zoo or aquarium? What tips would you offer to someone listening to this who was considering or already just drooling over the prospect of working at a zoo or aquarium to improve their prospects?
Yeah, I always say when people ask how do you get into this field, I say volunteer. Find the place that's closest to you that you can get to on a regular basis. Find out what the requirements are, how old you have to be. I believe for us, it's 14 and at least one semester of biology in high school. But just get your foot in the door that way, because that's how I came into my position. That's how so many people in the zoo world have come into their position, is just by working hard, volunteering. And then you find what you like and what you don't like. And then when you have the opportunity to go study stuff in college, study what pertains to that. And I was already well through college before I decided that I just wanted to go back to the aquarium. That was what really made me happy. And so I took as many, science classes as I could. But when it came down to it, my years of being willing to get my hands dirty, willing to do the grunt work, willing to show up at 8 a.m., on my days off, that really played a very important role. So find out what you can do, find something that you're able to commit to, and it can lead to a career.
Brenda, any suggestions? You've made the transition most recently, so.
I have. And speaking of a person who didn't have the experience beforehand, I think building up your resume is pretty important. I think I had applied the year previous to the one that I got hired, and my resume was not great. And I figured out how to make it better. I had other experience with animals, but not specifically with aquatic animals. And I think that really landed me the interview for the internship.
When you improved your resume, how did you improve it?
Well, I actually had the senior seminar where they helped us build our resume. That.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Making it more professional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So take advantage of the resources as a student to improve your chances in the interview process.
Yes.
Okay. Amanda, I mean, I'm assuming you probably have hired people at this point.
Yeah, definitely. I think Lori Beth really hit on that. The hands-on experience is so important. We do the same thing at the zoo where we have teen programs and internship programs and things like that. So just getting in there, volunteering, getting your hands on as much as possible, as early as possible is going to be really valuable. I would say then once you're in college, because we do like college degrees in this field now, I wouldn't stress too much about exactly what your degree is. We, at the Chattanooga Zoo, we have keepers who have backgrounds in psychology, anthropology, animal science, zoology, a variety of different things. And like you said, there are lots of jobs in zoos and aquariums that are in marketing or HR or finance. So I would say, just following your passion. We have people with degrees in all different types of sciences. My degree is actually in natural resource management. So not exactly zoo related, but still adjacent. And so you can find things that are interesting to you that still will fit. And as long as you're able to present it with your resume in a way that really shows that it's valuable experience, then you're good to go.
Well, and your suggestions all line up with what I mentioned speaking to our head of HR before the start of the podcast, and she said basically the same thing. Basically, if you are able to volunteer, that is a really great way to get your foot in the door. The more of a known entity you are when it comes to considering candidates for a job, the more likely you are to be considered if they know that, like Lori Beth said, you're willing to show up and do the hard work. And they know that you're reliable. Those are all important things for them to know. And those aren't always easy to communicate in a resume. So,
yeah, it's very valuable. Like, I think you said that you started as an intern here, right? We also have hired several interns. And when you don't have a lot of experience at the beginning, having that, but we know you, we know your work ethic, we know that we can teach you, really makes a big difference, and we'll be more willing to take a chance on someone who may not have a lot of experience if we have seen them through volunteering and internships and things like that, and we know that they have the passion and the work ethic and that they're teachable.
Sure. Our ambassador animal coordinator, Tanisha, was also a Jim Hill fellow. So I think she was on the husbandry side. Do you remember, Lori Beth? Was she forest?
I believe she was. Also, Rosie in Night Events was in our program as well. So she was feeding penguins with me. So
I remember that's actually the first time I met Rosie. She was wearing a Predators jersey for some marketing something that we were doing with the National Predators, and she was in penguins.
And we've had several fellows that are not here but have gone on to graduate vet school. And so, it's a really good way, even if that's the avenue that you're pursuing, it helps people figure out, being part of a volunteer or internship program, what they really think they want to do, because you may have your mindset on this is what I want to do, and then when you actually do it, you're like, I think I'm leaning more toward this. I want to do vet school over daily care, or the opposite. And so I think
too
it
much
really
poop.
just
Can't handle it.
Yeah.
Too much poop.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
Or just a change in species too. Some people get in thinking, I love this type of animal, and then they work with something different and they're like, oh, it ignited a passion in me for a species that I never thought that I would be interested in before. So, you never know until you get in there.
That can happen. Our lead animal care lead animal care specialist, Ocean Journey, Maggie. So she's been on the podcast numerous times, and she has spoken a couple of times in the past about the fact that she was passionate about working with either rhinoceroses or lemurs, which is two very different. I can't imagine. I mean, I don't know what it's like to be in charge of caring for either of those animals, but they seem very different to me. And she says she's never regretted that she got kind of channeled towards working with lemurs, and I'm she could have gone either way, I guess. But it sounds like she landed where she needs to be.
And we even have like, summer part-time folks that come in and work visitor services. And it doesn't seem like a related animal field at all, but it gets them here at the aquarium, and it gets the faces, it puts them in someone's sight. And so when their name comes up for an internship or for a job that is open, we're like, oh yeah, we remember they were on time. They were a good, valuable asset, and they cared about the aquarium's mission. And so no matter if you're looking for an animal job or not, just getting to that organization in one way or another is going to get some recognition.
Our head of HR specifically mentioned visitor services.
And I think you mentioned it earlier, Amanda. It's a special breed of people that can deal with people on a daily basis. So those visitor services folks, they're
heroes.
They are.
Absolutely.
Especially at spring break and summertime.
Oh, yeah.
And being able to highlight those transferable skills, like being on time to work, being able to navigate high pressure situations. If you've got an angry person who's mad about something and wants a refund, are you able to stay calm in a stressful situation? Because being calm in a stressful situation directly applies to animal care too, so there's a lot of things that transfer that you might not think that transfer. So being able to highlight those things and explain those things as well.
Exactly.
And it can be fun. So I'm going to do an episode talking specifically about volunteering and the opportunities that presents at the aquarium, places that you can volunteer that you might not even realize you could volunteer. But volunteering as a diver is something that a lot of people enjoy doing here at the aquarium. And that's actually how our Vice President of Marketing and Communications, Tom Benson, who has been on a previous episode talking about global travel, that's how he got his foot in the door, was he was a volunteer diver. And it was just because he had a diver certification and wanted to dive at the aquarium. And that's how they got to know him. And now he is at a VP level. So you could rise very high off of the back of volunteerism. So we'll go ahead and wrap up the episode here, but before we go, I'll drop a couple of URLs your way so that if you're interested in pursuing volunteer opportunities or internships or that sort of thing, Amanda, I'll let you fill me in if I've missed anything. But if you're interested in volunteering at the aquarium, you can go to tnaqua.org/volunteer, or you go to chatzoo.org. That's CHATTZOO.org/volunteer. And if you want to look for open positions at the aquarium, you can go to tanaqua.org, so tnaqua.org/get-involved, or get-involved if that's a hyphen is hard to remember. And then chatzoo.org/about/careers. And then get involved. Our page at the aquarium also includes a list of fellowships, internships, and externships that are open for you to pursue, like the Jim Hill Fellowship that we talked about Brenda taking part in. If I missed anything, Amanda, any websites that...
I think you got it. Yeah, those will get you where you need to go.
Good. Okay, well, with that then, I think we can go and wrap up this episode of the Podcast Aquatic. But before I go, I want to wish or express my thanks to Lori Beth Lee, to Brenda Salgado, and Amanda Eckhart, for taking part in the conversation about how to get a job at a zoo or an aquarium. Thank you to all of you for taking the time.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
All right. And if you have any ideas for a future episode of the Podcast Aquatic and you want to send it my way, please send an email to podcast@tnaqua.org. While you're online, go ahead and leave us a rating or a review if you've got the time. And in the meantime, until next time, remember that every drop matters.